Frey and I have known her for over 10 years, gosh. I think about at least a decade and a half, almost two. We used to work together, and I love her little bio because, well, it's kind of like me, but not as much. She's never cooked a holiday meal before, but put her in front of an audience and she's right at home. So true. Jan left the corporate world of marketing, sales, and real estate several years ago to dance into the entrepreneurial world of motivational speaking, training, and writing. She's learned that change is not a four-letter word, and that you must face your fears in order to grow and learn. She also learned that when God and your heart are trying to tell you something, you better listen and do something right. Her late mom's wonderful words of wisdom are always near in her heart. Always do your best and try the hardest. When she's not busy working as VP of Builder Relations at First Mortgage Company, Jan loves reading, traveling, Zumba. Ice cream is high on that list as well. A native of Missouri, Jan has called Oklahoma home since 1986. Is an OU graduate, has been married since '91, and has 2 teenage sons. Today she's presenting the gift of TAP CAP. So big warm welcome. Jan is really near and dear to our heart. We adore her and love her, and I think she's going to have some great words of wisdom for you. And more than anything, I love that change is not a 4-letter word. That may actually be engraved on our new office walls.
There's a second part that says change is not a 4-letter word, fear is.
Oh. So let's all welcome Jan.
I have never been barked before, but I get
That's a compliment.
Oh, Dima, thank you so much for having me here today. Before I start, I like to give kind of a fun way to remember my name, especially my last name, because I didn't get an easy last name like Smith or Jones or Ramadan or Radfar. So my first name, Jan, is really short for Janet, and I'm only called Janet when I'm in trouble. So I hope that nobody has to pull the Janet card today. And then my last name, Astani. If you know the clothing designer Armani, Astani rhymes with that. Or I was introduced several years ago at a Norman Chamber of Commerce event. And when the gentleman introduced me, he said, it's not Jan Astonishing, but Jan Astani. I really like that. So you have Janet Armani Astonishing, or yours truly, Jan. Dima and I, like we said, we can't believe it's been over 10 years since we have seen each other. We keep up through Facebook and LinkedIn and mutual friends. But I am so proud of the success that she and Frey have had with this company. You guys have been around since 2007, and that was probably a time in the Oklahoma economy when most people said, are you crazy to start a business right now? We all worked for a home builder at that time before they left, and real estate was kind of going down the tubes. Not as bad in Oklahoma as in other parts, but property values were going down. We were getting ready to have a new president. So things in the economy were just kind of crazy, but these 2 kids decided, hey, let's start a new company. So from 2007, I want to be the first one to say happy 10th anniversary in 2017, so congratulations on that. I also understand that you recently won another Metro 50 award, and Dima and I had an old-fashioned phone conversation last week, and I said, Dima, I know this is not your first one. How many awards have you won for Metro 50? And in Dima style, she goes, well, I show that it's only 5, but apparently the Greater Chamber says 6. 5, 6, you've been in business 9 years. That's about 60% of the years you've been in business that you have been a Metro 50 winner. And I don't know if you guys know the details involved with that application process, but it's not easy. So I want to say congratulations to you on that. And then finally, just as Dima and I were talking the other day, she talked about how with the team that she has here today, everybody in this seat puts into the greatness of this company. And she and Frank could not do it without what you guys bring to the office each and every day. So for those efforts, I come here and say thank you and congratulations. So for the 9 years that you have rocked the socks off the contracting world around the state of Oklahoma, I brought you a gift to say congratulations. So Dima, I will let you do the honors and open.
Thank you.
It is a very attractive Kansas City Royals blue baseball cap. One of a kind. You can't find this on Amazon. You can't shop for it in Dallas or go to Milan or Italy to buy it. I would put it on today, but I'm having a pretty good hair day, so I'll just leave it right up here. Actually, the TAP CAP is not just one gift, but it's 3 separate gifts I want to share with you today. There's a gift represented by the letter T, a gift with the letter A, and a gift with the letter P. And it's my hope today that as you sit back and relax and let the pizza settle and just kind of sit back and chill, that you in turn will receive these gifts and then do your best to share them with all of those who cross your path from this day forward. So if you are ready to receive your gifts, let's begin. My first gift to you today in the TAP CAP is represented by the letter T, and that gift stands for tenacity. Tenacity, kind of a funny sounding word. It means doggedness or persistent determination. If you remember the childhood story of the little engine that could, what did she say? I think I can, I think I can. I haven't had the chance to meet all of you today, but I would like to think that even though I don't know you and you don't know me, that we are probably all more similar than we are different. And so if you're a little bit like this crazy girl up here in the pink sweater, you've had times in your life when things got just a little difficult. And whether it was work struggles, relationship struggles, mental health issues, family issues, financial issues, work issues, whatever, things just got so crazy in your life that you were ready to throw in the towel, run out that door, get in your car, and drive and never look back. Has anybody besides me ever felt just a little bit like that? Sheila, hello? Dina. Well, I'm here to tell you today that no matter how crazy and hard and difficult life gets, we must never, ever, 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 ever give up, because we are so much closer to victory than we realize. I am the youngest of 3 girls. I was born and raised in Independence, Missouri, Harry Truman's hometown, thus the love for the Kansas City Royals. And I have 2 older sisters. My oldest sister, Carol, is 11 years older than me, and then my other sister, Trudy, is 8 years older than me. And then along came the baby, favorite. So I can remember, I think it was the spring and summer of 1970 that my big sister Carol graduated from Truman High School, where I also graduated. And she was so excited that summer because she had been accepted to college at Central Missouri State in Warrensburg, and Warrensburg was about 45 minutes away from my home. And so my big sister was so excited. It was going to be her first time away from home, away from family, away from friends, her first time away from her boyfriend, and that boyfriend has been my brother-in-law since 1971. So we got ready, we got my big sister loaded in our tan Buick, and we drove her down to Warrensburg. We got her moved into the dorm room, and so we kissed and said goodbye, and my sister and I, Mom and Dad, went back to Independence, and my big sister was there to experience college life. So in the beginning, she was so excited, but then reality set in. And my big sister became so homesick at college, she thought she was dead dying. That first day after classes started, she headed back to her dorm room. She walked down that hallway to the one payphone that all the girls on that floor shared. She called my mom Colette. And if you don't know what a Colette call is, you're co-workers after this. So she called my mom Colette, and she was begging and crying and pleading for my mom to come down to Warrensburg and take her home. So after listening to her firstborn go on and on for several moments, my mom was able to turn that conversation around, and she said, Carol, tell me about your classes today. How's your money holding out? How are you and your roommate getting along? Well, Carol, I tell you what, it's about dinner time. I need to go and start cooking for your dad and sisters, but I tell you what, tomorrow is Tuesday. I know that Tuesday will be a better day. I want you to call me tomorrow. So my big sister took that receiver, put it down, feeling rejected that her own mother would not come and rescue her. Tuesday came, and like a very obedient daughter, what did my sister do? She picked up that payphone, called my mom collect once again on Tuesday, begging and crying and pleading for my mom to come to Warrensburg and take her home. I'm sure those phone calls were very difficult for my mom. And even though Carol was only 45 minutes away, she could have been 45,000 minutes away. And I'm sure it took every ounce of strength my mom had to not give in and say, Carol, honey, we miss you too. Just hold on for about an hour and we'll be down to rescue you and bring you home. But my mom knew the value of an education. So my mom very slowly turned that conversation around again and said, Carol, tell me how your money's holding out. I sent you a letter over the weekend. Have you got it yet? You're going to be home in a few days. What are you going to do over the weekend? Well, hon, it's about dinner time. I need to go and get dinner ready, but I tell you what, tomorrow is Wednesday, halfway through the week. I know tomorrow will be a better day. I want you to call me tomorrow. My big sister said she can remember ending that phone conversation, and there was a cinder block wall where the payphone was. She said she just slid down that cinder block wall with tears streaming down her face. But my mom knew the value of that education. So Wednesday came, same phone call, Carol, call me tomorrow, and then in one more day you'll be home. So my sister called Thursday, and then Thursday turned into Friday, but guess what? There was no phone call. Why? Because my sister got to come home for the weekend. That was over 40 years ago, and I could not tell you how many semesters my big sister stayed at Central Missouri State. I can tell you that she earned a master's degree in education from OU. My sister Trudy received her bachelor's degree as an RN from a school in Kansas City when she was a single mom with 3 children, 16 and younger, living at home. And then me, I earned a college degree, a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Oklahoma. My mom knew the value of an education and what she wouldn't have given to be able to sit in a classroom just like her girls had to go to college. You see, my mom was a young teenage bride when she married my dad in 1952. That first year of marriage, my sister Carol was born. 3 years later, Trudy came along. And it was during these early years of their new little family that my father realized he better do something pretty decent to take care of his girls. So my father moved the family out to Coronado Island in San Diego, where he enlisted in the Navy. And it was somehow, somewhere, some way in the 1950s, while my mom was taking care of her Navy husband and being a dutiful 1950s housewife, cooking and cleaning and raising her 2 daughters, she somehow found the time to earn her GED. She knew the value of an education. My mom passed in February of 2010, I think 11 days after she and my father had their 58th anniversary. My dad just turned 83 October 6th, and he still lives on his own near my sister in Independence. If you ever got to meet my dad, and if you ever got to meet my mom before she passed, they would never miss a chance to tell you that their proudest moment as parents was seeing all 3 of their girls get a college education. So my friends, I'm here to tell you today that no matter how crazy or difficult or hard life may get, you must never, ever, 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 ever give up. Because you are so much closer to victory than you realize. The gift of tenacity. My next gift for you today in the TAP CAP is represented by the letter A. Would anyone like to take a stab at what that might be? Good gift, but I didn't bring that today. Maybe next time. Anybody else? Yes?
Acceptance.
Good gift, but I didn't bring that one today. I like how you guys. Anybody else? One more shot? Okay, the gift I brought for you today, represented by A in the TAP CAP, is the gift of appreciation. Appreciation. And it's not only the appreciation for what you have, but it's also for the appreciation that you see in others around you. I read a story one time that said, there are two vital, important words that a leader can say. What do you think those two words might be?
Thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. No matter how skillful and well-respected a leader is, the two most important words he or she can speak, thank you. There was a college professor who was at a point in his life that he was reflecting back on all of those who had influenced him over the years. And he fondly recalled a teacher from years ago who had instilled in him a love of poetry, literature, reading, and writing. So he was able to track down her address, and he sat down and wrote her a note telling her just how much she had influenced him. This is what he received back. My dear Willie, I cannot tell you how much your note meant to me. I'm in my 80s, living alone, cooking my own meals, lonely, and like the last leaf of autumn, lingering behind. You'll be interested to know that I taught school for more than 50 years, and yours is the first note of appreciation I ever received. It came on a blue cold morning, and it cheered me as nothing has in many years. You got to remember that appreciation can't be a one-time shot, but rather appreciation is something that we need to be mindful of every day to make it an ongoing event that we do each and every day. How many of you like to read? Any readers in the room? Okay. There was a book that came out in the last 10 years, a true story written by John Kralik. It's called 365 Thank Yous. Has anybody read it? It's a real easy read. It was a true story of John Kralik's life from a time when he was kind of at the lowest of lows. He was going through a second divorce. His girlfriend was leaving him, and I don't know if the girlfriend and the marriage were connected, but regardless, his love life was kind of, down the tubes. He was a lawyer, and his law firm was struggling because his clients were not paying their bills. And then the icing on his sad, miserable, pathetic life was he was trying to attain a judge position, and for whatever reason, that just wasn't happening. How many of you remember the old hee-haw TV show from the 60s and 70s? There was a song, and I'm going to sing it, but I'm not here for my singing voice, that they would say, if it weren't for bad luck, I'd
Have no luck at all.
have no luck at all. And then the guy goes, whoa! Remember that song? Okay, that was John Kralik's life. He didn't have any luck at all, just bad luck. So he got through the holidays one year, and then New Year's Day came. So he decided to go on a hike in the mountains near his home in California by himself. So as he was hiking out there on New Year's Day by himself, he heard a voice. And the voice said to him, John, until you are grateful and thankful for what you have, you will never have what you want. Let me repeat. Until you are grateful and thankful for what you have, you will never have what you want. So right there on New Year's Day on that mountain in California, John Kralik made a commitment. He would take the next 365 days and write one thank you note a day. In the beginning, he said it was pretty easy. He wrote thank you notes for birthday gifts. Then he wrote thank you notes for Christmas gifts. But then he said it got a little bit more challenging, and he had to dig way, 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 way down in his pathetic, sad, miserable life to figure out what he could possibly be thankful for. Well, he wrote a note to the guy at Starbucks thanking him for the great way he always made his cup of coffee. He wrote a note to law firm clients simply thanking them for paying their bills on time. He wrote a note to his ex-wife, the mother of his daughter, and he thanked her for the wonderful way she always planned their daughter's birthday parties. He even wrote a note to his daughter, who was about 10 at the time, and he thanked her for being the best thing that ever happened to him. When all was said and done, it took John about 15 months to write 365 thank you notes. Call it karma, call it law of attraction, call it what you will. When he was about 6 months into this project, he started to notice a change. And he began to see that the more thanks and appreciation and gratitude he was putting out there in the world, the more things in his life he had to be grateful and thankful for. And it all started with that first thank you note. After I read John's book, I thought I had been pretty good at writing basic thank you notes, but I was inspired to write him a note and tell him how the book spoke to me. Imagine my surprise about 6 months later when in the old-fashioned snail mail, Judge John Kralik wrote me a note. Handed. It says, Dear Jan, thank you for reading my book and for taking the time to write to me. I'm interested by your talk about the bee challenges. In my own life, I have been blessed by the opportunity to be a person I never thought I could be. Perhaps I'll hear your talk someday. All the best, John Kralik. The gift of appreciation. All right, my third and final gift to you today in the TAP CAP is represented by the letter P. Anybody want to take a stab at what that gift is today?
Patience?
Not today. Anybody else? This is one of my favorite words, my favorite gift. It's the gift of perspective. Perspective. And when you hear that word, you might think that I'm talking about our visual perspective, how we literally see the world. That's obviously one very important perspective. But think about it. We also have the perspective of how we view the world with our mind. We have the perspective of how we view the world with our heart. But once again, those are only 3 of the hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of perspectives that you bring to the world each and every day. Think about it for a minute. Think about all the different perspectives that make you who you are. Dima and Frey have a perspective of owning a business and running it. Their perspective is probably a little bit different than you who work with them. If you work in the corporate world, your perspective on business is different than someone who's got a nonprofit background. We have different perspectives on education, on upbringing, on family values, on religion, on spirituality, on politics, if I even want to go there on politics. So think about all the perspectives that you bring to the world each and every day. And it's really easy to get where I call the safe perspective zone. We look at the world the same way all the time. Don't be afraid to take a giant leap and step out of that safe perspective zone and see the world from new perspectives here, here, and here. There was a gentleman who every day got his daily dose of exercise by taking a morning stroll around his neighborhood, and he always wanted to take a different route to see new things. And so on one of his morning walks, he stumbled upon a brand new construction site that he'd never seen before. He was looking around for signs to tell him what it was going to be or who was building it or just something that would give him a hint of what was going on, but he saw nothing. So he decided to go up and interview one of the gentlemen on the job site to see what he could find out. So he walked up to the first gentleman and he said, "Excuse me, sir, what are you building here?" And that worker simply said, "I'm laying bricks." Not satisfied with that answer, the gentleman walked up to another worker and said, "Excuse me, what are you building here?" And that worker said, "I'm building a brick wall." Still not satisfied with the answer, he walked up to yet a third worker on the site and he said, "Excuse me, sir, what are you building?" And that worker, with a song in his heart, a twinkle in his eye, said, "I am creating the world's most beautiful cathedral." 3 workers, 1 job, 3 different perspectives. Let me tell you about Mrs. Thompson. As she stood in front of her 5th grade class on that very first day of school, Mrs. Thompson told her students a lie. Like most teachers, she looked at all her pupils and told them that she loved them all the same. That was impossible because sitting there in the front row, slumped over in his seat, was a little boy named Teddy Stollard. Mrs. Thompson had watched Teddy the year before and noticed that he didn't play well with the other children. His clothes were messy and he constantly needed a bath. In addition, Teddy could be unpleasant. And it got to the point where Mrs. Thompson actually took delight in taking her red teacher pen and marking Teddy's papers with a big red X or a big fat F. At the school where Mrs. Thompson taught, she was required every year to review her students' previous records, but she kept putting Teddy's off until the very last. When she finally opened his file, she was in for a surprise. His 1st grade teacher wrote, "Teddy is a bright child with a ready laugh. He does his work neatly and he has good manners. He is a joy to be around." In 2nd grade, his teacher wrote, "Teddy is an excellent student, well liked by his classmates, but he's troubled because his mother has a terminal illness and life at home must be a struggle." In 3rd grade, his teacher wrote, "Teddy continues to work hard, but his mother's death has been hard on him. He tries to do his best, but his father doesn't show much interest, and his home life will soon be affected if steps are not taken." In 4th grade, his teacher wrote, "Teddy is withdrawn and doesn't show much interest in school. He doesn't have many friends, and sometimes he sleeps in class." By now, Mrs. Thompson realized the problem, and she was ashamed of herself. She felt even worse when her students brought in Christmas presents, all wrapped in bright ribbon and beautiful paper, all except for Teddy's. His was clumsily put together and wrapped in a heavy brown grocery bag. Mrs. Thompson took pains to open Teddy's gift in the middle of the other presents, and some of the students started to laugh when she found a rhinestone bracelet with some of the stones missing, and a bottle of perfume that was 1/4 full. She stifled the children's laughter when she exclaimed how pretty the bracelet was, putting it on and dabbing some of that perfume on her wrist. Teddy Stollard stayed after school that day just long enough to say, "Mrs. Thompson, today you smell just like my mom used to." After the children left, Mrs. Thompson cried for an hour. And on that very day, she quit teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. And instead, she began to teach children. Mrs. Thompson paid particular attention to Teddy, and as she worked with him, his young, eager mind came alive. The more she encouraged him, the faster he responded, and by the end of the year, Teddy had become one of the smartest students in her class. Despite her lie that she would love all of her children the same, Teddy became her teacher's pet. A year went by and Mrs. Thompson found a note under her door from Teddy telling her that she was the best teacher he'd ever had in his whole life. 6 years went by before she got another note from Teddy, He wrote that he finished high school third in his class, and she was still his favorite teacher of all time. 4 more years passed, and another letter came saying that while things had been tough, he'd stayed in school and stuck with it because he had tenacity, and he would graduate from college with the highest of honors. He assured Mrs. Thompson that she was still his favorite teacher. Then 4 more years passed and another letter came. This time he explained that after getting his bachelor's degree, he decided to go a little further. The letter explained that she was still his favorite teacher, but now his name was a little bit longer. The letter was signed Theodore F. Stollard, M.D. The story doesn't end there. You see, yet that spring, another letter came. Teddy had met a girl, and they were going to be married. He explained that his father had died a couple of years earlier, and he was wondering if Mrs. Thompson would attend the wedding and sit in that very special spot, the one reserved for the mother of the groom. Of course, Mrs. Thompson did, and guess what? She wore that bracelet, the one with several rhinestones missing, and moreover, she made sure she was wearing that perfume that Teddy remembered his mom wearing on their last Christmas together. At the wedding, they hugged each other, and Dr. Stollard whispered in Mrs. Thompson's ear, "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, for believing in me. Thank you for making me feel important and showing me that I could make a difference." Mrs. Thompson, with tears in her eyes, whispered back, "Oh, Teddy, you have it all wrong. You were the one who taught me that I could make a difference. I didn't know how to teach until I met you." Gift of perspective. So there you have it. My 3 gifts to you today to say thank you and congratulations for a job super well done. The gifts of tenacity, appreciation, and perspective. And once again, it's my hope that as you have received these gifts today, that you in turn will share them with all of those who cross your path from this day on. God bless all.